do it with a four-wheel drive and a camper trailer or a camper van in tow. Many people plan for years to do that, and I want to make sure that we have a country where people can afford to retire, where people can afford to retire in dignity and with the respect that they deserve after a lifetime of hard-time work. I want to make sure that younger people, when they're working hard, understand that there is a future for them, and I want the economy to work for them. I want the economy to work for them as opposed to the other way around. And a Liberal government will always manage the economy more effectively than Labor. We know that the country at the moment has been mismanaged over the last 3 years, and Australians are rightly asking themselves now as they're starting to head to the ballot box, can you really afford 3 more years of an Albanese government? And I don't think people have forgotten the last 3 years. I know the Prime Minister doesn't want to talk about the last 3 years, but the fact is that families are really, really under the pump. And not just families, the small business here, which started from a very small business into a very successful business now, just in the last 12 months, the electricity bill's gone up by almost 30%. Now, that's a cost that either has to be borne by the business, but there are many other input costs that have gone up as well. More likely the costs get passed on, and it's those retirees and others that have to pick up that bill. And all of that is because of bad economic management in a high inflationary environment where we have people, Australians, who are in their own households over the last couple of years, they've gone backwards. An average family is $50,000 worse off under this government, and for most Australians, people know that we have lived in the biggest dip in our living standards in our country's history. I mean, I know we say that, but think about what that means for people. It means that they don't afford to pay for their groceries. They can't afford to pay for their insurance. The cost of everything has gone up for them. I want to make sure that we can win the election and that we can get our country back on track, that we can help those families live again, and that we can help make sure that we can bring interest rates down with a properly managed economy. Now, it's 12 months to the day, and you'd remember this headline, because this was the Prime Minister's main pitch going into the last election, that life will be cheaper under me, he said. I haven't found one Australian who can say that they're paying less for their power. The Prime Minister promised it would be down by $275. It's up by $1,300. He promised that their mortgages would be cheaper, but people are paying now higher interest rates because interest rates have gone up 12 times under the Prime Minister's watch. People are paying 35% more for their insurance. And there is a better way. The Coalition has a plan, a positive plan, to make sure that we can provide support to families. 25 cents a litre off fuel straight away. If we do that, it means that if you're a uni student or if you're a pensioner or if you're a family, if you're towing a caravan or a camper trailer, it's a big savings for you, and you can save that money or spend it somewhere else in your budget. We're going to give $1,200 back by way of a tax rebate because people have worked hard for their money, but they're struggling at the moment to pay the bills. So $1,200 back as well. That compares to 70 cents a day in 15 months' time, and it doesn't cut it. Families need support now, and that's exactly what we're doing. And we're going to make sure that we can keep our country safe. We're going to restore the dream of home ownership, and we're going to invest into defence so that we can be a safe country into the future as well. That's the alternative, and that's the choice that people have to make at this election. And it's a significant decision for people to make because this is a sliding doors moment. A Greens-Labor government is going to be a disaster for our country, and Australians just can't afford 3 more years of Mr Albanese. Work around? Yeah.
Mr Dutton, how do you stack up a preference swap with One Nation across WA, and have you traded Trish Botha's Senate seat to get Tom White across the line in Curtin?
Well, what we know is that the Greens will always preference the Labor Party, and the Greens will be a disaster for WA. If you think about the biggest impact of a Labor-Greens government, the most negative impact that it could have anywhere in the country, it would be in WA. So they are anti-mining. They're up front and open about it. At least Tanya Plibersek pretends that she supports mining, but then really doesn't when she gets back to Sydney. Well, it's about outcomes at the election, and the outcome at the election that would be the worst for WA would be an Albanese-backed government, because it would mean nature positive, which the Prime Minister won't look the Australian people, and certainly not West Australians, in the eye and tell them what it means. What it means is a stop to mining, and that is a devastating impact on the West Australian economy. The last thing Australians want is to have a Green Labor government. And don't forget that the Teal in Kate Cheney is working in lockstep with the Labor Party. The Labor Party's running soft in Curtin to support somebody that they know is a fellow traveller. And Kate Chaney would support a Labor Greens government, and that would be bad for WA. So I want to make sure that we can win this election to get our country back on track, to build WA. This is an amazing economy. I've been coming to WA for 25 years, and to watch it at different periods where it's been down, it's not enjoyable. And West Australians know that, particularly people who can't find new projects to work on. But when it's booming, when it's racing, it is an exciting place, and it will be racing under a government that I lead.
How can you credibly claim that your costings will be better than Labor's in the out years when you don't include $8.3 billion of your $21 billion in extra defence spending, and you're not actually including any of the off-budget money that will be spent by the Regional Australia Future Fund?
Well, the figures we've put together show that we'll have $40 billion less debt than Labor. So that means less pressure on interest rates. And if we have less pressure on interest rates, it means that families will see a bigger reduction in interest rates. And as we know, interest rates are always cheaper under a coalition government because Labor, this is the biggest spending Labor government, or any government, in 40 years. And what it's meant is that interest rates have stayed higher for longer, and that's really hurt families and small businesses.
Aren't your costings missing quite a lot of money?
No, they're not. Yeah.
Mr. Dutton, Howard Ong moved to Australia as an international student. He met his wife and he built a life here. Without that pathway, he wouldn't be your tiny candidate. Are you comfortable, based on coalition policies, sending a message that we don't want people coming here for a good education and sometimes setting up a life here?
So, Badura, what we've said is that we are the great beneficiary of migration in our country. The claim that the Prime Minister makes against me is that I let too many people into our country. And the fact is that I brought in 12,000 Yazidis, women who were going to be slaughtered by ISIL, and they have now started a home and a life here in Australia, and I'm incredibly proud of that. When we did the uplift of women and children from Kabul, I was the Defence Minister and we coordinated that operation, and those people are Australian citizens. It's an amazing story. I remember going to Jordan and handing over the citizenship documents or passports to a young family coming out of the Middle East who had no prospect of a future at all. And that's the great power of our migration program. It helped countless cases where kids were sick, where parents had been stranded overseas, or a parent had visited here in Australia and had a stroke whilst they were here, and we took care of them. But we manage our migration system in a sensible way, and what the government's done is that they've increased international students by 65%. There are 1 million people who have come in a 2-year period, which is 70% more than any 2-year period in our country's history. And what that's meant is that our kids have been locked out of housing. Australian kids have been locked out of housing. So if your question is, will I prioritise Australians and young Australians to put them into housing? Absolutely I will. And I don't make any apology for that. Our housing policy is going to help young Australians realise the dream of home ownership again. So we cut the permanent migration program by 25%. We stopped foreign buyers from competing against young Australians from getting homes. And there are many migrant families that I've spoken to here who are desperately worried that their kids can't get into housing. People who have moved here, first generation, second generation. Many Australians feel that they're locked out of housing under this government, and I want to make sure we can restore that great dream of home ownership. And on the first $650,000, the interest that you pay, that will be tax deductible for a young person buying their first home, and that'll be a great outcome for them, because at the moment Anthony Albanese has nothing but bad news for home buyers.
Mr Dutton, at the referendum you told Australians that if they don't know they should vote no. When you were asked about those comments the other day, you pivoted immediately to attacking Anthony Albanese. We don't know where cuts to the public sector are coming from, cuts to the migration system. We know it'll be a last resort to hold a referendum to deport dual nationals, but we don't know what else you're considering there. Without mentioning the Prime Minister or Labor, can you please explain to Australians why they shouldn't take your advice this time round and reject you?
Well, you mentioned The Voice, and here in WA, West Australians had a big say on The Voice, and they've had a big say in relation to these matters over a long period of time. So the government has this plan, which has now been reinforced by Annika Wells, which is obvious to all Australians.
Yeah, but if they don't know about your policies, why shouldn't they vote no to you?
And Annika Wells now is the additional voice in relation to this issue. I think this is an incredibly important issue. If you voted no on The Voice at the last election, and you were at the last referendum, and you were unhappy, if you were unhappy with $450 million being wasted on The Voice in our country being divided, why would you vote for Anthony Albanese this time around? The fact is that what he's doing is going, and again, you don't have to look much further than the words of Penny Wong and Annika Wells. They have a plan to introduce by legislation a voice. Now, Australians voted against that, and you would have thought that the Prime Minister would have been honest, but even on that issue he's not being honest. There's new taxes under Labor, the promise of a voice, and that is something I think West Australians and all Australians will reject.
Mr Dutton, earlier in this presser you were warning about the risks of a Labor Greens government. Have you done enough to prevent that from happening?
We've worked hard every day and night. I've been excited to go around the country and meet Australians from every corner of this amazing country. I'm very humbled by the support that we've received when we've been out, and this election is about how we can help people that we've hurt are really hurting. These people have told us their stories, young families and pensioners and others who are suffering under this government, and 25 cents a litre cut in fuel, and that's going to provide huge support straight away. $1,200 back of your own tax, that's going to provide big support, and we're going to fix up the economy so we can bring inflation down, and we're going to make sure that we can keep our country safe and improve safety in our suburbs and communities. And on that basis, there's no doubt in my mind that we can be successful at the election.
Mr Dutton, Angus Taylor has said that the Coalition will move public servants out of Canberra to achieve your plan to reduce the APS by 41,000. Now, that's not possible without payouts for those who don't want to move. 6 years ago, when the pesticides regulator moved to Armidale, people were given payouts of average $60,000. How have you costed the amount that it will cost to do these redundancies?
Look, we've worked with the PBO in relation to all of those costings, and Angus has presented that. What it shows is that we're $40 billion less in debt under a coalition government, and that's why a coalition government will always manage the economy more effectively than Labor. The costings have been done in association with the PBO.
Mr Dutton, the Prime Minister was in Dixon this morning. What message do you think he's sending by campaigning in your electorate one day out from the election?
I think it's a giant con job. It's a con job, 12 months to the date. 3 years to the date. To the day, okay? 3 years. Let's have a look at that. And the con job continues today. The Prime Minister's out saying to Australians there are no new taxes. He keeps changing his position, and Australians can't trust this Prime Minister. New taxes, changes to negative gearing, unrealised capital gain tax, the voice, all of this is, I don't think, something Australians are going to vote for. And the Prime Minister can play his games and the rest of it, but I think what Australians know is that this Prime Minister has let them down, and Australians can't afford 3 more years of Labor.
Mr Dutton, you mentioned you believe you can still win tomorrow night. When you wake up on Sunday morning, whether you're the Prime Minister or not, looking back at your first campaign as the leader, do you believe you've given this your best shot?
We have worked hard every day and night, and I've given it my all, as my team has as well. I'm incredibly proud of the team that we've got. We've got an amazing economics team, as John Howard did with Peter Costello, and we can get our country back on track. We can manage the economy much more effectively than Labor. We can help families straight away, and we can bring to an end 3 bad years. We've had 7 consecutive quarters of negative household growth. That is, for almost 2 years, families have been in household recession under this government. An average family's gone back by $50,000. I want to make sure that we can help those families. 30,000 small businesses have gone broke. We're going to create an environment where businesses can thrive so they can employ more people, pay more taxes, contribute to our essential services, and that's what a Liberal government will do. We'll restore integrity, and we'll make sure that we can keep our country safe as well.
A politician, possibly a Prime Minister and a person as well. What is your final pitch to voters?
Well, my conversation with the Australian people has gone on for 3 years, and we've listened respectfully. And what I would say to Australians at this election is that there is a choice, and it's a sliding doors moment. The choice is to continue 3 bad years, and Australians can't afford that. The cost of electricity is up by 32%, gas is up by 34%. I want to make sure that we've got a positive plan where we can help families straight away. 25 cents a litre cut to fuel, $1,200 back by way of tax rebate. We have an energy system which is a wrecking ball through the economy at the moment on Labor's watch. We're going to fix that. Electricity comes down by 44%. Wholesale gas prices come down by 23%. That's how we get the price of groceries down. And I'm going to be the Prime Minister for home ownership to make sure that young Australians can realise the dream of home ownership again and keep us safe and make sure that we can reduce crime in our suburbs and towns and make sure that we're a safe country in a very uncertain period. No, we're just going to do one.
Mr Dutton, you spoke before about granting families the ability to retire with dignity. They're under the pump, you say, in terms of costs. But on your own costings, you increase the budget for the next 2 years. Beyond that, budget repair is based on higher taxes in your own costings. Aren't those higher taxes a threat to working families?
Look, what our budget figures show a couple of things. One, we're spending money on helping families now with a 25 cent a litre reduction in fuel. That's incredibly important because families are hurting now. Now, there's an expense to giving $1,200 back to families as well, but that's money that people have paid in taxes. So we're providing that support back to them. They're the figures you refer to. The other figure, of course, is that we reduce debt by $40 billion, and that is going to bring downward pressure on interest rates, and that means that interest rates will always be cheaper under a coalition government.
Taxes.
We of course we are, and we reduce excise, and as we've said, and as we've always demonstrated, we can manage the economy and money more effectively. Look at what Labor's doing in Victoria at the moment. They are trashing the economy, and that's what an Albanese government would do if they're re-elected for another 3 years.
Mr Dutton, yesterday you said this shouldn't be a referendum on the campaign, and last night to Liberal Party supporters you evoked the 2019 election victory. Are you saying that you need a miracle for an election win tomorrow?
When I look at our candidates, have a look at Howard Ong. Howard is an incredible success story here in WA, and someone our country should be incredibly proud of. Will be an excellent member of Parliament and has worked hard, has door-knocked, has been out in the community and has, I think, a very significant chance of success here in Tangney. Now, he'll do that because of his hard work, his work ethic and what he brings to the table. There are countless other candidates that we have across the country who have done exactly the same thing in their seats, and I believe that communities will reward that effort. And if we do that, we can form a government, and if we do that, we can bring 3 bad years of a Labor government to an end, help families recover from that by way of assistance, and making sure that we can invest sensibly to bring interest rates down, to bring inflation down, to keep our country safe, and to make sure that we provide support through the petrol cut and also through the $1,200 rebate. That's what Howard will be able to achieve as a local member here.
Are you confident you fulfilled the brief of taking every Australian on the journey with you, or do you think some voters could be forgiven for assuming that you'll leave them behind should you become the Prime Minister tomorrow, especially in light of some of your choices around welcome to country and suggesting voters who choose Labor are politically immature?
Well, I think what Australians can see at the moment is that there is a clear choice. Can you afford 3 more years of Labor? And Australians can't. Most Australians that we've spoken to just really are quite dazed by the impact of Anthony Albanese over the last 3 years. Their budgets have been smashed. And I want to rebuild an economy where we have lower interest rates, lower inflation. It's unacceptable that groceries have gone up by 30% under this Prime Minister. People are taking items out of their basket, out of their trolley and putting them back onto the shelves. That is not going to be the economy that we run. And the Liberal Party will always manage the economy more successfully, and we will make sure that we take care of Australians, and that's our commitment.
Why did you find it important to come to WA on your last full day of campaigning, and will you commit to coming to WA 10 times a year like the PM has? And how many seats do you think that you can win back here? This used to be a Liberal stronghold. Is there a problem with the Liberal brand in WA?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that we can win a number of seats here in WA, and we've chosen excellent candidates, and people know that this is a federal election. This is not a state election, and it's fought on federal issues. The Labor Greens Albanese-Bant government will be a disaster for WA, and when West Australians, particularly those who are involved in the mining or agricultural sectors, weigh that up, there's no way that they can support an Albanese government, and it's why, frankly, some of the Labor candidates here have walked away from being seen with Mr Albanese. People know that we need to get our country back on track, and they know that the decisions in Canberra impact directly here in WA, and a coalition government in Canberra will always be a better friend to the people of Western Australia. We've demonstrated that before, we'll do it again in government. And in terms of my visits here, I've been coming to WA for 25 years. It's a beautiful part of our country, and I'm really proud to be back here today again during the campaign, and especially on the last day before polls open on the official day tomorrow. And I'll be back here more than 10 times a year, I'm certain of that.
Mr Dutton, your costings yesterday, they show you plan to gut, the future coalition government would gut $10 billion out of energy and environment programs. You're also planning to turf the Rewiring the Nation fund. How these cuts bring down power prices, and have you strayed or been distracted from your core message that this would be an energy election?
Jack, one of the most important things to do is to have a look at the independent advice on the government's policy and our policy and compare them. The independent advice by the best economist in the country in relation to energy matters says that our East Coast gas reservation model will bring the cost of wholesale gas down by 23%. That means, and we do it this year, we start it this year, this calendar year. It means you can bring down the cost of building materials, you can bring down the cost of groceries, you can bring costs down across the community. That's not our figure, that's the independent analysis. The other figure, of course, is that Frontier Economics says that our policy will bring the cost of electricity down by 44%. And the government's policy is going to be $263 billion more expensive than our policy. So let's have a look at the two options on the table. Mr Albanese, the one thing he is being honest about at this election is his commitment that power prices will go up even higher under his policies. Our commitment is that prices will come down, and they'll come down not just for gas and electricity, but also for building materials and also for the cost of groceries as well. We are going to get this economy pumping again, not just here in WA, but across the country. That's what's needed in Victoria as well, because the Labor Party has just been a wet blanket over the Victorian economy, and I'm going to make sure that we can revive jobs and economic activity. We are the best country in the world, and we deserve a good government, and that's what we can get after tomorrow night.
Mr Dutton, you've said you have no doubt the coalition can win this election. If you're not successful, will you remain party leader?
I've been clear in relation to my objective, and that is to win the election tomorrow. We're not in this for anything other than doing the best for our country, and the best outcome for our country is to change a bad government out. Don't forget the last 3 years. The last 3 years have been a failure right across the economy and people's lives. People have really suffered because of a bad government. Interest rates came down in the United States and Canada, New Zealand, comparable countries otherwise, well before they did here. And they've come down by 0.25%. That's not enough to support people. So I am excited to be in this position and excited to look tomorrow to an outcome which will be a better future for our country. And that's what we've been working day and night to achieve. And I have no doubt in my mind that we can win the election and get our country back on track.
Mr Dutton, before you held up a newspaper with the headline, "Life will be cheaper under me," the Prime Minister's words. Can you guarantee...
You're referring to this?
Yes. Today...
Do you need that angle or this angle?
Can you guarantee that life will be cheaper under you?
I can, and I can do that because life will be cheaper under a coalition government because we'll have got rid of the worst, biggest spending government in 40 years, and we will manage the economy as John Howard and Peter Costello did. I was incredibly proud to be the assistant treasurer to Peter Costello and worked hard with he and Nick Minchin and others and John Howard in formulating budgets and getting the economy right. And that's exactly what we can do again under a coalition government.
Sorry, I thought there was someone behind me. Mr Dutton, Pauline Hanson has said to get her vote, you'd have to commit to pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement. Labor's now running a campaign saying that's inevitable if you're elected. Is that something that you would do?
No, we've been clear in relation to our policy on that matter.
And sorry, just to be very, very clear, you wouldn't pull out?
No, we've stated our policy in relation to that matter.
And again,
we've stated our policy in relation to that matter, and there is no change.
There's no change.
No. Yeah. No. Yep.
Last question. We've seen some pretty unedifying exchanges this campaign between campaign volunteers on both sides. And earlier today...
but when you say both sides, what from the coalition supporters, what are you referring to?
There have been a number of reports from both sides.
Such as though?
And earlier today we were at a pre-poll booth and there were cornflakes from both sides which had been graffitied. Howard Ong, yours and Sam Lynn's both had Hitler moustaches drawn on them. If I can ask you, and maybe Howard as well, how would you describe the tone of this election campaign?
Well, firstly, I'm not aware of any instance where a coalition supporter has graffitied or abused somebody from the other side. And I've been watching these campaigns for a long period of time. In my own electorate, we have the ETU and the CFMEU abusing elderly women. I've seen it firsthand, and reducing women to tears. And the conduct is appalling. And we don't accept that. The union movement, as we've seen with the CFMEU, they're condoned by this Prime Minister. They've been out of control, and it's part of the reason we've got some of the highest building costs in the world. And we don't accept that, and we don't condone it at all. In relation to the attacks on people of Asian heritage or on any Australians, the anti-Semitic attacks that we've seen on Jewish Australians by members of the Greens and supporters of the left of the Labor Party have been appalling. some of the worst in our country's history. That's been the hallmark of the last 3 years, and I condemn it absolutely. It's unacceptable, and it's not something we would ever condone. People should speak to each other respectfully and deal in a democratic process in exactly that way.
Just on electricity, and you can hold that up again if you want to, but you've mentioned power prices repeatedly.
We're just doing one each, so thank you very much. Thank you.
That was Opposition Leader Peter Dutton.